Go, what's good YouTube? It's your boy Jayoffact, man. Today's video I got y'all with another reaction video. Do me a favor and like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, man, let's get straight into this reaction video. Alright, man, as y'all can see from the title of the video, today we're gonna be reacting to Omari Hardwick Teases We Never Knew the Real Ghost. Let's get straight into this. Y'all know I'm all for the power, news, all for everything.
I would love to cut my teeth on the pre-world that Ghost came from. I would love to play the world that I never got to play.
See, I like watching.
Really sink my teeth in the juicy
I like watching the actors like away from like off camera, not off camera, but like on live, like them out of character, out of their character.
We only really know from Tasha, the kids, Tommy, Angela, but we don't really know this kid. And everybody else's spinoffs is about them being known. How ironic. So I would love to sink my teeth into that because as an actor, Joe, I don't feel like I did the full turn of the guy until I go back a bit, if that's what the game is going to be.
Now over 5 years, coming up to 6. That's how long since Ghost was killed off in Power. But even though Ghost has been gone for over 5 years,
it's been so 5 years, holy.
And this is a conversation that he had with Fat Joe.
Bro, I think I've been watching Power for about...
It's something I never really went into at the time. But now we kind
I'll
of
say 2021, so since 2021,
did we really know
4
who
years.
Ghost was? Did we really know the man behind
Decent
Tom
of
Ford's
4 years.
Did we really know the person before he opened Club Truth? What he was like? Some of the things that he had to do?
I would love to cut my teeth on the pre-world that Ghost came from.
Now, this is a character who I do think is dead, but a character I think is still missing a lot of pieces to his puzzle before we get his full picture. Let's not forget, he still lives on in so many different ways. Whether it be through a mention or
for real, Ghost do, like, I ain't gonna lie, Ghost do live on through so many different ways. Through Tommy, through Tariq.
Ghost may have made a few mistakes, but he certainly wasn't stupid. To Tommy reminding Tariq, Ghost living a double life was his downfall. Or, just living through characters like Tommy and Tariq. The legacy of Ghost has and always will be felt in the Power universe, in some shape or form in the present day timeline shows.
I forgot about Lil Yaz.
That's also what I think the overall arching theme will be for Power legacy. When they eventually do bring
a lot of stuff they could do with a lot, like they could this little stuff I'm hearing about Tariq and Tommy.
I still feel
they could develop Tariq character so much, like it's so much room for his character to grow within one season. At least I ain't gonna lie.
And that's the topic of discussion in today's
especially working with Tommy.
This video kind of also branches off the last one where we spoke about the blue pill and the red pill, where it made me actually kind of question: did we really know who Ghost was? It's also kind of a warm-up to a much bigger James St. Patrick character breakdown I've got coming in the next coming weeks. I've been working on it for a very long time.
I'll never stop saying this. I learned so much watching this show, bro.
We're going to be running through a few different perspectives and also Omari Hardwick's comments from a while ago.
Like,
and they eventually
just about the real world business, how money works.
Some kind of part to tell a story, even if it's just a short story in the form of a Power movie.
How crooked cops really be,
which I do think depends
and
a
really
lot
be
on
trying
when
to play
they
you.
actually finish Power Origins. But first, let's take a look at the topic of viewing
this
Ghost
school
from
could really,
different perspectives.
this show could really teach you more than school can, bro. Like real life. Especially Kanan, man.
Run down on us.
Chess.
See, he ain't try to outrun the cop.
He been teaching. I ain't gonna lie.
As long as he can outrun me.
Kanan was a good mentor. Slightly. He was a slight good mentor. He could have did better. Some stuff I don't agree with, but for the most part, Kanan was a good mentor.
He mentioned that we didn't know who Ghost really was. We knew him from Tasha's angle, Tariq, Angela, Tommy's, and also Kanan's. We were given all of these different perspectives. From Kanan's perspective, he'd argue that Ghost was fake, a backstabber, and selfish. He said Ghost used to believe that if he outran Tommy and Kanan, the cops would just settle for them. Remember, back in Power, Angela did a background check on Ghost and his record came back squeaky clean. Not like Tommy's or Kanan's. But Kanan's version of what Ghost was like when he was a kid is only from his perspective. Just like he told the story of Breeze's death, he made no mention of Tommy. But we all know from episode 107, it was both Tommy and Ghost who rolled upon Breeze. What Kanan couldn't tell Tariq was that he gave Breeze one last chance.
What Kanan didn't know, what Kanan couldn't tell you, is that I gave Breeze one more chance.
I can't wait to see this scene in Power Origins.
So Omari
I cannot wait to see the scene when Ghost actually
we didn't know much about his life either. And it is actually kind of crazy because when we think about what Omari said, it's actually kind of
50 Cent better invest so much into Power Origins, bro.
Can we honestly all sit here and say
that show gotta be good? They don't have no choice but to be good.
We definitely know parts of who he was, but even at times there were a lot of characters in Power who were intrigued by Ghost. his story, and even they constantly ask the question.
James St. Patrick. Nice to finally meet you.
You're James St. Patrick. You know, I tried to run a background check on you, and no one in the nightlife world seems to know who you are.
This
But who
the
is
definition of a double life nigga right here. What?
Precisely.
My nigga goes,
What you see is
boy.
what you get. I'm as real as they come.
Legit and in the
This is why
streets.
this feels so much to learn about who he
See,
was
that's
from
his
multiple
thing,
different
bro.
perspectives and
Ghost had
characters.
so much
That's
shit
number
just
one.
dragging
Learning about
him
who Ghost
back
was
into the
from
streets.
other
The
angles and
whole
perspectives.
like
That
the whole
includes a younger
series.
version of Ghost in
He'd
Power
try to
Origins,
get out. He'd be
but
this
also
close
from
to
the
getting
old
out.
Tommy's perspective.
Some others.
I posed a question after Ghost
A
season 3
debt
came to
he
an
owe
end. I
to
asked the question,
somebody.
did Tariq really earn
Somebody
the name
want
of
a
Ghost?
favor,
I personally
whatever.
don't think he's done enough.
He just
Even though
old,
he
he
did
get
in
dragged back
essence,
into the game.
quote unquote, become the biggest goddamn drug dealer in New York. Some of you may think he has, but in that particular breakdown I mentioned, the only person who can actually give him the name Ghost is Tommy Egan. Tommy's the only person who was really by Ghost's side throughout the good times, the bad times, as they built their organization, the missions that they must have gone on together, the murders that they would have
I
committed
forgot all
together,
about
and so
Lobo's-
much more. They can
Lobo's
fill a lot
so
of
funny,
gaps in
bro.
Ghost story just through conversations and perspectives. And I know that's what Power Origins is for. It's there for us to understand Ghost and Tommy's journey from when they were teenagers when they met Kane and Stark. I'm sure in Power Origins we're going to learn a lot more about who his mother was, his pops, and other relatives, family and friends that he had. Family and friends that had a lot of influence on him. Just like Kanan had friends like D-Wiz, Bamus, Ronnie, mentors like
Nah,
Snaps
for
and Pop,
real.
uncles like
I
Marvin
do
and
wanna
Luke,
see Ghost
cousins and
friends
sister
that
and
came
jukebox.
up with him.
I'm pretty sure they're going to give Ghost a
Besides
backstory
Julio,
and
that's the
some
only
more
one we
family
really
and
saw. I
friends
don't
to
even know if
make his
Julio
family
even
tree
stayed
make
like in the
sense.
same
Because that's another thing.
neighborhood or whatever
In Power,
they
we
use.
never heard about who Ghost's family was apart from right until the very end in the conversation with Uncle Gabe.
I got to know that you understand that I tried to tell him not to talk to the police. That those kids were bad news.
It's all about Pop.
So that's the gap that Power
Ghost
Origins
Pop.
will no doubt fill. But hearing these stories from the older version of Tommy in Power Legacy, hearing Tommy telling Tariq, this is who Ghost really was, this is what Ghost did back in the day, just like he once told Sean.
Back in the day, Ghost and I drove a 91 Honda Accord.
You shared a car?
Hearing stuff like this from Tommy with Tariq will bring a very different perspective to what we see on screen in Power Origins. And in Power Origins, we're going to get a completely different outlook. The younger Ghost that we get introduced to won't be the same as the older one. We'll slowly get introduced to the family tree that I mentioned of family and friends. There's definitely going to be some similar characteristics like him with his head in his books, but also running around in the streets, which in essence foreshadows his double life that we saw a bit later on with Club Truth and the Streets in Power. We're
Real
definitely going to
double
see a
life.
lot of similar traits, but I have no doubt he may probably end up being annoying like Tariq was back in Power, or like Kanan is in Raising Kanan.
Yeah,
He's not
he
gonna
might
the
be.
same smooth, calculated, Tom Ford suit wearing chess player that we knew from Power. And I do think that's
I
what
do
a lot
wanna
of
see
people
the
wanna
character
see.
development.
They want to see Omari Hardwick.
Was
back.
goes
They wanna
more
see him back in
calm?
the
Was
Tom
goes
Ford suit
always
doing his
calm
thing.
and chill?
And
Was he
besides hearing about
always
his
a
stories
tweaker like
from other
Tariq?
people like Tommy,
'Cause he don't get
besides
that
learning
shit
about
from
his
nothing.
story in Power Origins, can they make this happen in a show which would, in essence, take place before the opening night of Club Truth, if we're going by what Omari Hardwick mentioned? So let's take a look at the quote from Omari Hardwick once again.
I would love to cut my teeth on the pre-world that Ghost came from.
So we've been through the perspective bit with Tasha, Tommy, and a bit of Kanan's perspective. But what Omari Hardwick would love to do is sink his teeth into the world that they never really got to show, which is the pre-world that Ghost came from, before he opened Club Truth. And I know Courtney Kemp has previously spoken about doing a Power movie before. She was on Instagram Live one time and she mentioned that she thought about doing a Power movie, which would be set before the opening of Club Truth, something that Ghost and Tommy went through before Power Season 1, Episode 1. And I honestly wonder if it is something that they can actually revisit, if Omari Hardwick is still open to the idea of playing Ghost prior to the timeline of Power. Because just like I
That'd be
mentioned at the
crazy.
beginning,
Oh
I do
my
think
God,
he is
if they
dead.
do that.
I don't think he's ever
Please.
coming back as an alive character.
Please do it.
Now I think this kind of spin-off idea or a potential Power movie, or a trilogy movies with
Please do
potentially
it.
Omari Hardwick returning, because he definitely is open to the idea from what he said before. I do think it all depends on when they end Power Origins. For example, do they end with Breeze's death? Do they end with Kane
Yes.
going to prison being set by Ghost and Tasha?
No,
Until we get
yes,
around the
right
middle
there.
to the
That's
end of
where they
Power
should end it.
Origins, we won't be able to say, okay, this is where they're going to end Power Origins. So until we don't know how they intend to end Power Origins, we can't say what they can give us prior to the opening of Club Truth. As soon as they finish Power Origins, then we'll know what kind of gap they have to play with between the end of Origins and the beginning of Power. And that's what they can really work with. and I'm sure Sasha Penn would have already thought about that. I know it really is early days in writing Power Origins, but I'm sure he's got the bigger picture in mind, as we normally do when we set our goals and visions. Just like Courtney Kemp said, she always had the idea of Ghost not surviving come the end. But the gap between Origins and OG Power, it definitely is something to keep in mind for how they tease Power Never Ends. There's things like the Trenton beef that Ghost spoke about before.
I ain't get a message like this since.
The Trenton beef. Well, you guided me right then, man, and I need you here now.
So what you need?
Nah, real.
Ironically, they also made a nod to some of the guys in Trenton in Raising Kanan, with Akbar's introduction. There are so many different ways they can go about it, from a one-off Power movie to a trilogy of
so
movies,
many different
or even
ways
a
to
one-off
go
limited
about
series
it.
where they just do maybe just 6 episodes. What I would say is, if Omari Hardwick is down to do a show prior to his life from Power Season 1, Episode 1, that's something I think would be really interesting, because it goes all the way back to the point of us not really knowing the character. Again, Power Origins will definitely do a pretty good job in filling a lot of gaps, but just like I mentioned, where do they finish Power Origins? And what's the gap between the end of Origins to the beginning of Power? And that's something I think the writers can have some real fun with, and also give us as the audience something really special. I've always said Power started with Ghost and it should kind of end with Ghost. Even though I think Power will actually never end, they'll always branch off into something new. But tapping into a story prior to Ghost opening Club Truth, after how we know they end Power Origins, that definitely is one way to bring Omari Hardwick back, because like he said, he's definitely open to the idea. I mean, I've always loved the idea of learning more about Felipe Lobos.
Omari,
they were 8 months into their business relationship when we first started Power, and Felipe Lobos even mentioned a couple of crews that Ghost got ahead of.
You told me that the Kings, the Bloods, the DDP, that none of them were worth my time. I believe the exact words were, they're gangs. Don't wear business.
I'm telling you, Lobo stay frying my shit, bro. He stay frying me.
The world, which he definitely is open
Lobo's
to,
probably was the most unserious plug ever.
Just some food for thought on something I'm sure the higher-ups at Stars have no doubt thought about. No doubt they've sat down and mapped out a timeline and thought about a bunch of ideas. In my opinion, I think it all depends on when they do end Power Origins. How do they end that show, and what kind of gap is left between the end of Power Origins to the timeline of the beginning of Power? So, in reality, we may be waiting a while, but honestly it really may be worth the wait, if they can make it happen.
Man, it's gonna be worth the wait if they doing some stuff like that.
And I do think a movie or two or a trilogy with Omari Hardwick's return really would be something quite different and quite special. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. They've mentioned more spin-offs, they've said Power Never Ends, so let me know what you think they've got planned beyond Power Origins and Power Legacy. Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you.
That's crazy, man. Hope y'all enjoyed this reaction video. Do me a favor and like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, man, I'm out this bitch.